Hello and welcome to this next lecture of the UPSC Mains Answer Writing Initiative, where we try and decode the art of answer writing, making you more proficient and much more comfortable and confident with handling UPSC Mains questions. How do we do that? By taking up some previous year questions, answering them, seeing the structure of the answer, giving your homework, and then checking those copies, giving you feedback on that as well. This is class number 21. We have been running this for 20 days now, and I'm really glad to see a lot of you joining in every single day and sending you answers as well. I do understand the prelims is nearby, so in case you want to skip this and then rejoin after the prelims, that is also entirely up to you. In case you are new here and you have missed out on any of the earlier classes, in the very first class of this series, we discuss about how to structure the answer. We discuss about how to write the introduction, the main body, the conclusion, where to write the way forward, where to summarize. So in case you had missed out on any of the earlier classes, I am giving you the link of this entire playlist in the description of this video. Go to the very first class and you will be able to see that. Once you are clear with that, you can come back and resume from here. So let's see what question do we have in front of us right now. From 2023, we have taken up a question from GS3 paper. What are the direct and indirect subsidies provided to the farm sector in India? Discuss the issues raised by the WTO in relation to agricultural subsidies. So basically, there are three things that are being asked. First, what are the direct subsidies that the government offers to the farmers in India? Second, what are the indirect subsidies the government offers to farmers in India? And third, what are the concerns that the WTO raises? Why is it that the WTO is not happy about it? If you have read this, it's not a difficult question to answer. Subsidies, especially farm-based subsidies, are always a lot in the news. In simple terms, subsidy means when the government externally comes in and then helps a certain sector by giving them money directly or indirectly to help them prosper. That is called subsidy. Direct subsidy are those where the government is directly giving money into the farmers' bank accounts. Like we have a lot of government schemes under which the government gives money to the farmers, or the government, let's say, does a loan waiver. That's also direct subsidy. Then there are indirect subsidies. Indirect subsidies means government is not transferring money to the farmer. Government is helping them in other ways. For example, giving subsidy on urea, fertilizer. So what does that do? That reduces the cost of the fertilizer automatically. Then giving MSP, minimum support price, assuring the farmers that you will have certain income. Running other government schemes, running other research, government programs, soil health scheme, for example. All of these are indirect farm subsidies where we are helping the farmers but not giving them direct money into their bank accounts. The third part is the concerns raised by WTO. Now, WTO has long been a platform where India's farm subsidies have been questioned. Ever since India started the National Food Security Program, under which the government of India decided to give a majority of the Indian population food grains at a very low cost subsidized price, 3 rupees per kg rice, 2 rupees per kg wheat, 1 rupees per kg coarse. Ever since then, there have been concerns at the WTO. Major concern that WTO has is that it will lead to trade distortion. People will buy cheap products from India and then they will export it to other countries. It will distort international trade. That is a major cause of concern. These are the pointers that you have to write here. So again, direct subsidy, indirect subsidy, and the WTO issues. How do you start? There are two ways to start this. First, if the question is asked and just a few months before the question, this matter came up in the WTO, then you can relate it. For example, you can start by saying that a few months back or on this month, the WTO held discussion on India's farm subsidy, or the members of the WTO raised a question about India's farm subsidy, thus bringing this topic into light once again. So if something recent has happened related to this that you would have read in the paper, then that's a good way to begin. That this was in the news because of this and this reason. If that is not the case, or if you don't remember, then you have to go with a definition. Here, what do we define? We can define subsidies Although subsidy is a very generic word, you know people understand it, but even then, if you don't have a fact ready, you can start with the definition of subsidies. Another fact that you may have is, if you remember or if you know, what is India's subsidy bill? So how much subsidy did the government give, for example, last year for farmers, for farm sector, what is the subsidy quota? If you remember any of that fact, that can also be an introduction. So there are various forms in which you can write this introduction. Fact about subsidies, fact about something that is in the news, or a definition about subsidies. So here, assuming that you don't know a fact, assuming that you don't remember something that you read in the paper, we are starting with a very generic definition of subsidy. So subsidy is a form of financial assistance to achieve certain policy objectives. Both states and central government provide direct and indirect subsidies to support agricultural production and alleviate financial burden from the farmers. So again, very generic kind of an intro. As I said earlier, you could have written a fact also, but for that you would need to remember those facts about numbers of the farm bill, etc. So either of the two, you can start with that. Now we'll come to the main body. Direct subsidies are not many in number. Direct subsidies, 1 or 2 maximum, which we have written. First, government transferring money into the account of the farmers, the PM Kisan Samman Nidhi scheme. The government transferred money during the pandemic as well. It became extremely famous. It talks about 6,000 rupees being transferred every year to the account of the farmers, basically land holding farmer families. It's in 3 equal installments, 2,000 rupees each. Then farm waivers. There is no government scheme for farm waivers. Farm waivers are usually promises made during elections. It's a one-time thing. When the party comes to power, they may or may not waive the farm loans. So again, these are the direct ones. Indirect ones are the ones which you have a lot in India. MSP, fertilizer subsidy, in irrigation there are subsidies, interest rate subsidies, etc. Over here, as many examples as you can give, the better your answer will be. So for example, here don't just write fertilizer subsidies. Explain the fact that government subsidizes urea fertilizer. Similarly, for irrigation sector, give the name of the scheme that the government runs, PM Krishi Sinchai Yojana. If you don't remember the name of the scheme, that's a different matter altogether. But if you do remember, please do mention that. Interest rate subsidies in the form of Kisan credit card schemes. There are crop insurance schemes, Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, electricity subsidy. The government of India does not charge electricity when the farmers use it, for example, let's say for borewell, etc. Infrastructure subsidy, research and extension. So again, all of these or any of these that you remember can be added. As I said earlier, don't compare this and try and write 8 and 9 points in the answer when you're studying the examination hall. In the examination hall, under a lot of pressure, you might not be able to remember all these pointers. How many you remember doesn't really matter. Whatever you remember, just write that. Don't make up stuff. Write factual, important examples that you can. Then the third part, issues raised by WTO. We have all read about this. The biggest issue WTO raises is market distortion. They say that in India, because the government of India is offering these food grains at a lower cost, these products can then go into international market. Since other countries, other governments are not giving these subsidies, it can lead to distortion in trade. It can create trade barriers. Not just this, there are also allegations of overproduction leading to wastage, because under MSP, for example, the government will buy the food grains, doesn't matter whatever quantity it is. It can have environmental impact as well, because when you are selling fertilizers at a lower cost than the market price, farmers will buy that in larger numbers. There are so many allegations that Indian farmers buying cheap urea are exporting it illegally to countries such as Bangladesh, etc., because there the MRP, the urea is sold at MRP. So these are the issues that WTO has raised about Indian farm subsidy. It's an ongoing matter. It has still not been resolved completely. And this is how we'll conclude it, by saying that India's farm sector is heavily subsidized to support the livelihood of millions of farmers. It's a topic of dispute, but there has to be a free, fair, and such a solution found that both the sides have to understand the issues of each other. We can't let the WTO bulldoze our aspirations. On the other hand, we can't just let our subsidy bill balloon. There has to be a common balance found between the two. That's how we'll conclude it. Now it's time for your homework from GS3. This is a homework that I want you to try your hands at. Adoption of electric vehicles is rapidly growing worldwide. How do electric vehicles contribute to reducing carbon emissions? And what are the key benefits they offer compared to traditional combustion engine vehicles? Not a difficult question to answer. It is one of those topics that is in the news, very generic kind of a question. You should be able to answer this. Try and write this in about 200 words. If you want, you can send across your answer to this email ID, harshmeetsir@gmail.com. I'll be happy to give you feedback. If you want the PDF of these lectures, do join the Telegram group. Link is in the description of this video. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye. Jai Hind.